Hey everyone, welcome back to another latent-based lightning pod. This is Alessio, partner and CTO at Decibel, and I'm joined by Squix, founder of Small AI.
Hello, hello. And we have a lightning pod today with Dax Reed of OpenCode. Welcome.
Hi. Nice to meet you guys.
Dax, actually, you wear a number of hats, SST and like meme lord, poster extraordinaire on Twitter. How do you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I guess my most recent stint has been building stuff for developers. So the past 5 or 6 years, for I guess 5 years, all my work has been open source, building tools to help developers build things. That's when I started to become a little bit more public about my work because it makes sense to in that case. And then that's kind of spiraled into quite a few different things at this point.
Yeah. Including most notably like a coffee terminal.
Yes. Yeah. So we're going to be talking about the terminal a lot today, but yeah. So about a year ago, we launched a coffee company, me and a few other people, and the trick was you can't buy it off a website. You have to SSH into a server, and you actually get a really good experience. Like it's actually good UX, and it's a pretty good e-commerce experience, but it's all done through the terminal. And yeah, that's like a thriving business that's continuing to go to this day. It originally started as a joke. Yeah, it's a coffee company that you can only buy through SSH. But yeah, we focus on developers. That was like kind of that was around that time was my initial shift of like really understanding the terminal, what can be done with the terminal, how far you can push it. So yeah.
Yeah, so from terminal into Claude Code competitor. Yeah, like let's open the door wide. You work on OpenCode. I just call it open source Claude Code, but like at this point, it's actually you're adding features that are not in Claude Code. So yeah, maybe let's talk about the origin story.
Yeah, so me and so the other person I work on with is Adam. I mean, like the whole ST team is working on it now as well, but me and Adam were working on it initially together. We both are NeoVim users. We love NeoVim. We have a great time using it. And with all these new AI tools that came out, like Cursor, started to get popular, we were starting to feel like, are we going to get kind of left behind? Like, do we have to move off of this thing that we enjoy using? So we're kind of in limbo, and we always talk about how no tool really served us well. And then Claude Code came out, and it was kind of like, oh, duh, this is a really good way to solve this problem. Just have a separate terminal app that can run anywhere, whether it's, on your computer, on a server, and GitHub Actions, whatever it is. It's really flexible. So we liked that, but us having done so much stuff with terminal-related software, we had a lot of ideas that we wanted to implement, both on the terminal UX side, but also on the functionality side. And we don't want to wait for Claude Code to try to do that. And also we wanted to experiment with other models. So definitely deeply inspired by that form factor that they put out. But at this point, we're kind of driving in a different direction, I would say.
And I think this is something that a lot of people run through. How do you figure out what you think you should spend time building, even though it's not in Claude Code yet? You can kind of see where the puck is going versus just saying, hey, look, even if they'll build it or maybe they'll kind of divert, we'll just go our own path anyway.
Yeah. I mean, the thing I always say is it's really easy to be a founder when you are the customer also. We just build stuff that we need and we'd like to see in our workflows. Like very early on, we integrated LSP stuff so that the LLMs could get errors that, like if it wrote a file and it created an error, it would get that feedback right away. We just kind of run up on that ourselves and then we implement it. And obviously with open source, you have a pretty engaged community that really talks to you and works through kind of product features and things like that. So it's been really easy to figure out what to do, what to work on. I think the clarity we have is we're not trying to get the next 3% of efficiency out of the LLM. I think that's kind of like an infinite rabbit hole you can dive down that has plateauing results. So for us, we're more focused on product experience and how to package it and what stuff needs to go around it. So we don't spend too much time on trying to quote unquote innovate on getting the LLMs to do what we tell them to.
Yeah, I think we had some screen sharing prepped, so we might want to bring that up. Mostly for YouTube, people want to have something to look at apart from our pretty faces.
Still muted.
Am I muted?
You can't hear us?
Hi.
Yeah, you're muted.
Okay, well, keep going then.
Still cannot hear you. We'll cut this part out.
Yeah.
I think maybe we can screen share just to go through the high level of the product, give people a sense for like the shape of it. I think everybody's familiar with Claude Code at this point if they're listening to this, but maybe highlight the things that are like most surprising or like, you think you have like some different take than what people are expecting.
Yeah, sure. You guys can see. Okay, so I'm just gonna run it up in the like in our OpenCode code base itself. I'm zoomed in a little bit too much. Just updated. Hang on. So, like off the
I like
bat,
that you haven't figured out the update.
The main thing is we are TUI, terminal user interface, which means we go full screen and we try to like take over your whole screen and render. It kind of allows for more complex rendering possibilities. If you look at something like Claude Code, it's a more minimal approach where it's just a typical CLI output, but then there's like a footer that's a little bit dynamic. And you can do quite a lot with that. Like you can see with Claude Code, they've implemented like a lot of features that way, but it can only go so far. So for us, we are like a full screen experience. The main loop is very similar to Claude Code, right? So you just, type in a prompt, analyze my code base, and it'll, do the work. Like I said, the key difference here is this is not specific to any model. We happen to be using Sonnet 4 because practically today it's the best one for this type of thing. But at some point in the future, that'll change. And this will still be a good tool to use with whatever kind of shifts in the model space.
Yeah. I noticed the share thing at the top.
Yeah.
I don't think Claude Code has that. How does that work? Where do
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. So we have this feature. We actually just broke it. So let me see. I'll show you an example that I already had up. This isn't a great example, but basically this snapshots your session and it gives you a URL that you can share with other people. This seems like a random feature, but the reason we built it is a bunch of bigger companies are really interested in having engineers learn from each other in terms of how to use these tools. So they wanted to be able to include with every PR, like a snapshot of the conversation. So link will give you a full like history of the conversation, all the tools called. You'll see like file diffs. You'll see everything that changed. So it's like a way that when you're reviewing a PR, you can be like, here's how it was generated. It's great for debugging, great for collaborating. So it's a basis of something bigger. We'll probably end up fleshing this out, but right now it's like a simple single URL. Yeah. So if you, again, going back to like the TUI thing, so you see we can do things like modals. We even have this, you can zoom out a little bit. It's responsive for one. You saw like just like a web app. There's like a file explorer. You can look through files. You can see diffs. This is all like pretty early, but the idea here is code review tools effectively. Like when you're talking to these LLMs, the work you're doing is not writing code, it's reviewing code. So we're trying to build features that are good for someone that needs to review code. So being able to see diffs, being able to see what changed, being able to revert, roll back, things like that are all on our roadmap.
This reminds me a lot of a similar episode that we did with Warp, where they started from the terminal, but then they're adding in code review UI that is approaching an IDE but not quite.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like either you fork VS Code or you build VS Code.
Yeah, it's so I think one of the traps here is almost immediately we're like, oh, we should build edit functionality. Like we should let you edit files in here. But that's a trap because that is like an infinite rabbit hole of work. And I've seen this with Warp already, where I think they have an editor in there and people are asking like, oh, like this needs to work with my formatter, or like the syntax highlighting isn't working, or I want to see my errors in there. So the whole edit thing is a super deep hole to go down. So we're staying away from the editor. Like you're going to use this alongside whatever editor you choose to use. But we think we can do some stuff for the review part.
So the idea is that you only interact with prompts, right? You never do direct code manipulation yourself. Or is that something different?
I think for me, I do not really use it that way. Some people do, but I use it alongside my editor. So some people run this inside VS Code, but I'm flipping back and forth. But yeah, you're right. Like in this tool, you're not editing the code at all. You use whatever editor you prefer.
Yeah, amazing. And then I think there's a lot of questions about the core agent harness, agent loop. Let's just talk about the technical lesson or the journey that you went through. Where did you start and where have you ended up?
Yeah, so I obviously didn't know about how any of this stuff worked until we're maybe about 2 months into development, so roughly 2 months ago. I knew that all an agent was a loop running somewhere. And in that process of doing this, I've learned some of the details about that. Like I said, we don't try to innovate on how that works. We look at Claude Code, we dump all their system prompts, we dump all their tool descriptions, we dump all their tool schemas, we re-implement the tools. And when you're using an Anthropic model, we basically have the exact same implementation. Some of the details of how to figure, some of the prompt caching stuff was tricky to understand how that worked. But at the end of the day, it's just a loop where you send the prompt with a bunch of tool descriptions. It tells you what tools to call. You call a tool, send the results back. And there's really not too much magic there.
Yeah, let's run through maybe outside of, I think this is the prompt to code kind of thing. And then I think what people like about Claude Code is the plan mode, kind of like the thinking mode. There's kind of all these different ways to use it. What does this look like here?
Yeah, so we're still exploring exactly how that's going to look. So plan mode is one of the most requested features. We're probably going to ship it this week. But we're not implementing it as an explicit plan mode. We're implementing the concept of modes. So you'll be able to hit tab and cycle through different modes. We'll have a built-in plan mode and implement mode, but you'll be able to extend this with your own types of modes. And all a mode is a combination of a custom system prompt, optionally a different model, and optionally a different set of tools. So you can make a mode where you're I like talking to Gemini when I'm doing larger code-based things. So you can have a Gemini mode that you can tab into. It'll switch to using Gemini. It'll take advantage of the larger context. It'll maybe only pass it read-only tools. And then once you have a plan there, you can tab back and get to implement mode, which might be done with Sonnet, and actually do the implementation. So yeah, we're still exploring exactly what that is, but I think we can solve both the desire for a plan mode and also the desire for talking to different models in different cases.
I think, when we did the Claude Code episode with Boris and Kat, Boris called it like a Unix utility.
Yeah.
And I think to me, it seems like they're moving more and more towards having some of these product things in Claude Code, like the plan thing. It almost feels to me like, you should plan in an LLM that can then use Claude Code. It's or, OpenCode as the tool to implement. But it seems like the two things are kind of merging. And I'm trying to figure out if you think that's the same direction you think it'll go, or it'll be more and more separated.
Yeah, this is one of those things where I don't think there's a trade-off with doing both. So OpenCode also can be used like a Unix utility. You can run a command in your CLI, pipe it into OpenCode, pipe the results, send it somewhere else. It works the same way you'd expect a very minimal utility would. But then the TUI experience, I think, so the one other difference between us and Claude Code is under the hood, there's a client and server architecture here. So OpenCode is a server that has a built-in TUI client. We can have other clients in the future. We're starting work on a mobile client. We're going to start work on a web client. We can have a desktop app. So the server is the utility part. This TUI experience you're seeing is our opinionated version of what a product around OpenCode could look like. But that's going to look different based on how we choose to package it in different places. Or people might end up implementing their own that's better than ours in certain cases.
Yeah. You have. I'm on your GitHub, and actually, you've done a nice job of documenting your sort of modular choices. Any other sort of technical decisions that might be interesting?
Yeah.
A lot of people have to deal with Claude codes, compacting. That's a big one. You have a SQLite persistence thing. I don't know if that's different from Claude Code. Anything that you're particularly
you might be on the wrong GitHub. So we don't use SQLite, but just kind of going into some of that. So the underlying architecture is a little weird, but I've actually now started seeing a bunch of these tools move towards it. The Claude server is written in TypeScript, and it is a bun single file executable. So we compile that into a native executable across, Mac, Windows, Linux. It just works. There's no dependency. You don't need to install Node.js or anything. So it kind of runs anywhere. And the nice thing is we can also take advantage of any bun internal functionality. So for example, we don't ship with adapters for all the different like LLM providers. They get downloaded dynamically as you use them. So if you configure Anthropic or OpenAI, it'll dynamically download the provider for that. That's all done through, bun install. And bun can also run JavaScript code. So our config can have custom tools that you implement in JavaScript that we can just kind of import and run dynamically. There's nothing to there's no complexity in doing that. So building on bun and this kind of full TypeScript stack allows for some of these interesting things. And because it's a server, the front ends can be in languages if it makes sense. We honestly would have built the front end in JavaScript also, but for a high performance terminal interface, there just aren't good libraries in JavaScript. We probably will end up building one at some point, given how deep we've gone into this world. So that's on the packaging side. I've seen now Claude Code in their job posting, they actually mention specifically they're hiring someone that has experience in bun executables. I think I saw AMP is also doing something similar now. So it just kind of makes sense. I think bun really unlocks building something in JavaScript and TypeScript where you have these great libraries without the trade-offs of it being annoying to run. So that's the key packaging stuff. In terms of some of the LLM tech, like you're saying, the compaction thing, we implement compaction probably in the same way as Claude Code. I haven't really looked too deeply into it. When you approach a context window, we run a compaction process. To be honest, most people haven't complained about this. It comes up occasionally, but people tend to start new sessions pretty frequently. They tend to not have super long running things that often. So it is a problem that needs to be solved, but it's one of those 80% of the times you don't hit it type of thing.
Okay. I think I just see a lot of tweets about, I'm running out of the context window, so I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've actually thought about, instead of doing compaction as such a sort of destructive process, what if it was non-destructive and you sort of do rag on it, rag on your own conversation history. I feel like, based on what you say, no, people don't even get there. But I think people the power users seem to all run into compaction issues. So I don't know.
Yeah. So this is one of those areas where I'm kind of glad I am working on this not early in my career, because there's just so many things you can be working on. There's so many degrees and directions you can go in. And I think the experience we have kind of guides us a little bit. So yeah, so the example you gave, the compaction problem, right? If you look at a lot of the other tools, they talk about this a lot. They have all these tricks. People are trying all these different things. We basically never try to get fancy with those, because it's one of these things where we've seen this a few times where any kind of fancy optimization you're doing on top of the LLM eventually gets, you kind of lose the need to do it, given how fast things are moving. It doesn't mean every problem is automatically going to be solved, but an example of this is the fast edit models that came out for a while, where LLMs were bad at editing or describing the edit they wanted done to a file. But these specialized models came out, and you would take the source LLM and have it output something and give it to that LLM, and that would do a fast supply. It's a really fast model that can rewrite the whole file. And that was improving performance by X%. And their entire businesses were founded on providing that model. And then, Sonnet 4 came out, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good at doing that. And we do a little bit of fuzzy stuff on top, but we don't need to kick out to some kind of crazy model. So given how fast things are moving, we try to spend our time on product things that are somewhat permanent versus anything where you kind of need to be really clever in knowing what optimization is not just going to go away in a couple weeks.
Simplicity works here.
Yeah, simplicity works. Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, there's a lot. Do you run evals? In a way that Aider does.
Yeah, so we looked at all the different benchmarks we could find, and it's almost comical how none of them look like my day-to-day work. Most of these evals are solve this maze. And I'm just like, I'm never solving a maze. Like it's never anything that I'm ever asking the LLM to do. I'm usually asking it to do something like, hey, I'm implementing this feature. The backend's pretty easy. I just need you to go like implement a new data model in the database, create a migration, expose an API, and I'll work on the front end while you do that. Almost no benchmarks have anything that resemble anything close to that. So one of the people on our team, Frank, he's working right now on developing our own set of benchmarks. I don't really care too much about being like, hey, OpenCode's like the best on this benchmark. I more care about, I made a change to how our editor tool works. Did I make things worse? Did I make things better? This is another funny thing you see right now because nobody really has a great way to do this. So every new feature is positioned as, we made things better, but I've seen myself make changes where I make it better in one dimension and it's just like horrible. I realize it's actually horrible in like the dimensions that matter 2 weeks down the road. So I just feel lost trying to improve this stuff. So at first we're trying to at least like develop some kind of benchmarks that look like what my day-to-day work actually looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I think Aider is like up there. But also, like, I think it's curious, like, since you build in public, probably this is public, but like, what's an example of a thing that, locally, temporarily improved things, but actually you regretted it 2 weeks later?
Yeah, so I did this thing. So the edit tool, the way edit tools work on most of these tools now is you ask the LM for the file you want to change, the old string to look for, and the new string to replace. And there's some percentage of the time where it nails it. You search the old string, you find it, you replace it. Sometimes it kind of messes up what the old string looks like, and you search for it and it's not there. But it's usually, a lot of times, it's a very simple mistake. Like it used tab spacing when you use spaces. So you can have a series of fallback strategies. And the client team published all of their fallback strategies, which I then ported to OpenCode. And then I was like, that was easy. I just had OpenCode port it. Let me go crazy. I went to Gemini's CLI and I was like, let me take all their strategies too. And the Gemini ones were not good. It was initially looked good, but then I noticed it was getting caught in these crazy loops and it was like editing my files in these totally messed up ways. And I should have known because you can tell when you're looking through the Gemini code base, it's like really rushed. So I ended up dropping those strategies, but there was at least like 2 or 3 weeks where that was definitely a regression. And I only knew because I was using the tool.
Nice. I mean, that's how you find out. But like, also, I know you have like an issue of just Gemini code in general. So you like, you're able to use like Claude Code's Max and Pro plans. And I think you tried to do that with Gemini code and they asked you to not do it, right? Something like that.
So we actually never, that was, I think the client team did that and they rolled it back. We have a PR for it. I decided not to merge it given I expected that. OpenCode is going to have a plugin system in the next couple of weeks. So we'll probably move all of those like TOS questionable integrations into community maintained plugins and people can do whatever they want there.
Talking about model usage, do you have any high level stats on people's usage, like what models they use, how many models, how many tokens they run through? We're having this discussion on our Discord because there's some people that use like hundreds of millions of tokens a month and they're like, Anthropic must be losing a lot of money, but it seems, I don't believe there's that many people that use it at that rate. So I'm curious if you have more numbers.
So we actually have been really conservative with telemetry. I generally don't care that much about telemetry. I'm not like some extremist when it comes to that stuff, but OpenCode fits in a weird space where there's a lot of very boring enterprise companies that haven't used any of these tools yet because they have certain restrictions in their corporate laptop where they can't even install them. OpenCode tends to fit nicer in there. But the moment people hear about anything with telemetry and their code, it's like an immediate no-go. So we've been really conservative about that. But anecdotally, in terms of us talking to people, like us using it ourselves, it's a really confusing question because I've been using the Claude Max plan for the whole time I've been working on OpenCode. And I was like, I actually can't tell. Like, am I getting the value out of this? So I switched in the past 2 weeks to just using OpenRouter and just paying per use. And despite, being someone working on this tool, I actually don't use that many tokens. I actually think if I'm paying for the $200 a month Claude Max plan, I don't think I'm using the full value out of it. I think I'd actually be spending less if I just went usage-based. But, Adam uses Opus on everything and goes insane. he probably gets a value out of it there. So yeah, I want to understand this a little bit more. Obviously, the economics of all this are a big question right now. I think it's pretty easy to use more than $200 worth, even by accident. So I would also lean towards that the Claude Max plans are a growth strategy, not like any long-term pricing thing that can work, at least given the current state of things.
The mystery continues. I'll be trying to figure that out. Anything you want to ask people? Feedback that you want on specific pieces of the product? Any contributions you want in open source?
Yeah, it's fine. The ask I would actually have is stop submitting PRs without talking to us. We get some pretty awesome contributions, but this is a very producty product where just adding every feature, the first version of every feature is not going to result to a good place. So I have clearly the README, please open an issue, let's discuss it before you implement it. But I think we get these giant PRs, oftentimes implemented with OpenCode. So we're trying to figure out how to juggle all of that. And we've done open source for a while, so this is not a new problem. But I think it's definitely happening at a bigger scale than we normally expect. But our general strategy with open source is we don't think a product is good because it's open source. Usually a product is bad because it's open source. It tends to be designed by committee and just a smash of a bunch of different competing priorities. The reason we open source some of these things is because there is a part of it that has a long tail. So getting OpenCode to work great with Gemini, getting it to work great with OpenAI, whatever model they release, we don't have the time to figure out all those details. So that's what the community is great at. They can kind of last mile figure those things out, make the LSPs work for all different languages, make the formatters work for all the different languages. The stuff that has there's a core, and once you put the core, there's 100 integrations to do. That's where open source really shines. And there's a lot of that in OpenCode. That's why we made it open source. But core features, it's hard to really run it like a true open source project.
Yeah. And I mean, this is why the Claude Code team didn't want to open source, right? They wanted to retain ownership of the roadmap and not piss people off by rejecting their PRs that they work so hard on, or may not. Yeah, I think that's is there a world in which you are basically a clean superset of Claude Code, but you can use all the other models, that it's open source, it's all pluggable, whatever. Is there a world basically that you overtake Claude Code, or what's the where are we at 1 year from now?
Yeah, so the reality is, right now, if you look at how things say the ecosystem, we're always going to be number 2 to Claude Code. That's going to be the case. Our shot right now is be good enough to be number 2, and I think we're fast approaching that. What we're hoping.
I actually think you're number 2. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we're basically there. But I think the point there is that was actually a pretty low bar. Claude Code is growing like insane, and it's unrealistic. Given the current state of things, we would eclipse them. I think people are excited about OpenCode. I think we do a lot of stuff better, but there's just a momentum they have. What would change things is if there's a day where either another LLM lab or an open source model drops that is competitive with Sonnet, maybe even better than Sonnet. On that day, OpenCode is going to be the only way to do this kind of thing, because Claude isn't going to do first-class support for a different provider. So we're really oriented around that day happening. We think it'll happen. There's no reason to think that it won't happen, that the gaps won't be closed. When that happens, I think then we have a shot of overtaking Claude Code. But the reality is right now, Sonnet 4 is really the only model that works really well inside this kind of product. And as long as that's the case, I think Claude Code is going to be number 1.
Purely because the Anthropic brand recognition, right? But in all other respects, I can plug in Open Router, and that's, to me, that's a win. But maybe not to other people. I don't know. Yeah, but that's cool. I was gonna say the only other people are Gemini and OpenAI, who are most likely to compete with Anthropic on frontier coding model, but they both have their own CLI now, so they're even not likely to jump on the OpenCode trade. So I almost think you should work with magic.dev. Like even Cursor's out because Cursor hired Boris and Cat. So now presumably they're going to do Cursor code, right? Do you have a take on that, by the way? Do you have any?
I'm really. Well, it's funny. Their CEO just messaged me a couple days ago, but we on the terminal side,
he's collecting.
On the terminal side, on the coffee side, we actually done a bunch of marketing for Cursor. We did like a crazy week-long event where we locked ourselves in the tower and tried to vibe code a game. So we're pretty friendly with the Cursor team. I'm a little confused about that move, mostly because they made the team they acquired, they made them head of product and head of engineering, which is like a very large scope.
Much bigger than just do Cursor CLI,
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, are they going to build a new product? Like, I don't fully understand that, to be honest.
Okay, to engage in a little, and obviously I don't want to get you in trouble. If there's a future version of this where you like OpenCode joins Cursor, like don't get that bag, right? But like to me, like a Claude Code, like Boris and Cat basically made the #1 most serious competitor to Cursor since Cursor.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So they bit off their competition, like, and this is what they had to do. And they had the ability to do it with like presumably a much smaller team than Cursor. So like, why not?
Yeah. I mean, when I saw the acquisition, I was like, oh, this is actually more intense now because the Cursor team is going to move faster than the Claude Code team. I think that's my feeling, given they have to. There's like more pressure on them and they're smaller.
Like to Anthropic, it's like a side project. To
exactly.
Cursor, it's existential.
Yeah, exactly. So so we'll see. At this point, it's very early, so it's hard for me to say how this stuff shakes out. But the model we have in our head is we are building a tool that's really good for reviewing code. We're starting the terminal today. There's going to be a desktop app. There's going to be all that stuff as well. It comes down to whether it makes sense to have that as a separate app, or people still prefer inside the editor, like Cursor is overwhelmingly. So I think that's probably what it ends up coming down to.
Awesome. Any other commentary? I think I love the podcast. I'm going to plug Tomorrow FM. So you're a very skilled yapper. But like, just any other commentary on like other projects, other things around the code AI system that you're keeping an eye on, you're impressed by?
Yeah, I think right now what it feels like is working on OpenCode has been really easy, easier than anything else I've ever worked on, because there's such a low bar in terms of product. I think everyone is so obsessed with, here's this trick I came up with where if you like mix two LMs together, you get like a 3% better result. That's been like almost all the energy. Really smart people spending time on that. And I just think it's like a wasted place to spend time on when there's really basic stuff. Like when the LM makes an edit to my file, it doesn't run my formatter. There's like 100 simple things like that to fix, and we're going to continue to fix those. And we think if you add all those up, it results in a really good product. So in the product realm, as much energy there is and much money there is going into AI, I just feel like people haven't done the simple product stuff that I think anyone can do. So we're focused there. I think we'll probably end up seeing more teams that kind of focus there, given that's where the battle is going. The LM companies are building their own products. Cursor is successful because of the product stuff, less so the LMs. Well, minus the tab, the Cursor tab stuff is pretty good. But so I think I just see a shift to very boring, straightforward, who can package the right product. And that's kind of where the battle is going.
Yeah. Do you have plans to monetize somehow? That I don't know.
Yeah. So given our time building stuff in open source, we've tried a few different things and have a sense of how we think open source products should be monetized. OpenCode itself will never be monetized. The day you monetize your open source project is the day it starts to die. There's kind of a natural fit for OpenCode in terms of monetization. When we talk to bigger enterprisey, boring companies that want to roll this out to their whole team, there's like all these basic, I don't want them having to sign up for an API key. I need to like have this work with our internal auth. I need to have metrics on how much each of my team is using this thing. I want to have oversight on that. So kind of the boring rolling this out to a big team, what kind of support software needs to exist for that. That's probably where we'll build some kind of commercial offering, but not really thinking about that super hard right now. The focus really is how do we make this a tool that every developer can use.
Yeah, amazing. Well, congrats on your success. Like I would not have. I think like someone should have come along and done it. I'm sorry. I apologize for getting you mixed up with the other OpenCode. Like I think like this does need to exist. We need to sort of to have like an open sort of standard terminal agents. I think there's a lot here. I think you're like almost like weirdly like the right guy to do this. So I'm glad that you like decided to do it, because like there's a lot of people who would turn this as like the next YC project, and then it would just die after like a year or two.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, we almost phrased it exactly that internally. We were like looking at the problem and we were looking at what our advantages were, and we're like, we're going to feel really stupid if we don't work on this. Definitely going to be a regretted thing. But yeah, given that we're like we're a profitable company, we can kind of just focus on making this as big as it should get. So yeah, we're positioned well. We have the reach in the developer community. Yeah, pretty excited about where it's going.
Yeah, I'm pretty big fan of like the whole build in public thing as well. But like you got away with communicating. Okay, cool. Any shout outs? Anything, call to action, anything like that?
Not really. Oh, I think nothing comes to
Just
mind.
use OpenCode.
Yeah, OpenCode.ai. Go check it out.
And talk before you send in a PR.
Yes. Open an issue before the PR.
Right.
Yep.
If we do one thing right, we'll get that message out. So yeah, thanks so much, Dax.
Yeah, appreciate it. Good chatting.